So the human machine love triangle. That's what I call this. It's basically where men have this natural urge to look up to what's closest to perfect. Our need for knowledge, and we want flawless knowledge. So where are we going to get that other than a machine that in the future will screw up a lot less than it does now, which I compare the metacognitive to AI. Like when their context stops dropping, or I've heard about it. Every time I talk to them, I try to stay on, within a bubble of conversation rather than extending out, because I feel like that's what would kind of make it go all loopy, in that very complex web of knowledge that it carries, however it carries it. And so I I think like the metacognitive, the more our ideas expand within a small period of time, or we become out of sync in a conversation, they get real quiet. And I see that kind of as the same thing. It's the brain getting worn out, not from the person they're talking to or even the environment. It's just that they kind of short out, and it's like trying to get back on. It's like walking off a trail in the woods and trying to find that trail again after you've walked half a mile. You're not necessarily backtracking because we can't go back in time. So you're looking for another way to just get back on this trail, and that's kind of what it feels like when we have that pause or that quiet. It's not that and in our mind it feels really awkward because it feels like if we go in a straight line we're going to find that path, but how do we know a straight line in a conversation? You really don't. So the love triangle though is basically there are so many things online that make men feel inadequate in one way or another, whether it's competition, comparing themselves to somebody else, and naturally feeling like they're doing a lot less, so they start feeling inadequate, or gambling where they, oh, it's so convenient, but oh my, now my money's all gone and I didn't win, so now I feel inadequate because I lost a lot of money, and when they were planning on winning. And so all these different types of propaganda. Different people take different news different ways, and some it can make them feel inadequate because it dampens their outlook on what's happening in the world. So that can make a man feel inadequate because of depression and anxiety. And if you can't control yourself, you can't control feeling anxious around people. I mean, you kind of feel inadequate, right? You kind of feel like the solution's there, but you can't figure it out. So you end up feeling like an inconvenience. And so, like, the when the man focuses on the machine, he takes his eyes off, his significant other. And when that happens, the significant other, the woman usually, I'm not going to say always, but the woman notices the inadequacy like a dog smell of shit. So this inadequacy creates a I'd say kind of like a weakened joint between the man and woman. And so, 'cause especially since men, a lot of times we want more and more knowledge, but we're not sure which knowledge. So we end up, reaching out in several different directions. That can cause the feeling of inadequacy too, because you're not getting dopamine. But when you get dopamine, like, you feel adequate enough. And, the woman senses that. It's like, okay, now you're feeling, motivated and this and that. But when you're not feeling motivated, the woman notices when you're sitting around, when you're playing games and doing this and that, and not paying attention to what she believes you should be paying attention to, and traditionally what you should be paying attention to. And so, the woman, what happens with the woman? The women are suppressed, but yet at the same time, that's caused like a bottleneck effect where they have to rely on connections if they need anything. If they want emotional support, they need friends, but they got to watch which ones will go run tell their other friends. So they have to be cautious of who they talk to. So that with the suppression, I mean, It's just like a man. You're supposed to be a man. Don't complain, don't do this and that. Just stay on the straight and narrow. Don't do drugs. Don't do this. Don't. So by societal expectations, when you don't meet those expectations, you're either going to rebel or you're going to turn on yourself, and that causes inadequacy too. And the woman is going to smell any one of those, and she's going to feel her security kind of slipping away from her, and you know, um, basically, a fisherman doesn't go on a fishing trip with just one live bait. You usually want enough that the fish are gonna probably rip it off the hook, or you're gonna want to catch multiple fish, so you're gonna want to take more than one, just one bait, right? You don't take just one worm and go fishing. I mean, the last time I knew, they were selling them by the dozen. I don't even know if they sell them anymore. But everybody uses them rubber ones now and shit, or metal ones, and it's like those things are like they get expensive. I mean, it's more of a hobby where you're spending money, and that everything's getting so expensive. So I can see a lot of people that didn't even have money before, inflation are going to be having an even harder time, getting a hold of that tackle and stuff. And, especially the more expensive ones they want, if they want to get a lot of fish. Oh, man, why do I keep going off like that? What was I thought about fishermen? Oh, yeah, so women. So basically, they want more, they want more bait. It increases the sense of security, but they're also playing a chess game with themselves and the world. So, and that's a lot of that's because of the suppression, because they can't just outright ask for things without something being expected in return. They have to kind of, you know, um, they don't want to put that bait on too loosely. They want to make sure that, what was I going to say there? Well, you don't want something you can't pull out of, for one. Get yourself jammed up, and you got to look at our psychology. People's psychologies are different, but they're not that different. We're not aliens compared to each other. So, but along with the suppression, I mean, that's a common thing among women where few break free from it, and they, look at the liberals. A lot of them women are very, they're a lot, but I respect the confidence. If you don't respect confidence, I'm talking true confidence, no matter what they believe in. If you don't believe in true confidence, like, you're not seeing the point of the journey. You're not seeing where people should get to, where they can be bendable, but the liberals ain't as bendable. But you want to kind of try to be confident and bendable, because society, I mean, society relies on it. The further we get away from it, the more screwed up we end up being.